Maria, I have another question for you. I'm so sorry. Have you had issues possibly with a device not letting you do interpretation before?
No.
It's still not letting me. Is there possibly another email that I can send something to you, a different link, because it's still not letting me send select you as a interpreter. I can select you to do inscriptions, but that's it.
No, that's the only mail I have.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Let me figure this out.
Good evening, Commissioner Graves.
Hello.
Hi, Commissioner Sims.
Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Good. Happy Monday.
It was so good to see you both during tribal consultation.
These days, it feels like whenever I see folks in person, it's like a rare treat. So it was really nice to see you as well in person. And Commissioner Graves, you're much taller than I thought you'd be.
Oh, I get that all the time. It's just my shrinking personality.
Well, that's not the way that's not how I meant that. Just that you are indeed quite tall.
Good evening, Commissioner Walkinshaw. Good to see you.
Good evening. Good to see you. I'm adjusting my lights so you can see my face. So I'll be back on in just a moment.
Sure. So Commissioner Sims, I hope I was much taller than you thought I would be too.
Indeed.
I tend to be on the short side.
Well, you know, like I said, my mom is 5'2" and she's one of the tallest women I know. So height can be defined in a number of ways.
But we're all the same height on Zoom. So it is a platform I appreciate.
Chair, I am going to continue to work through this. Heidi, if I can ask you to start the Spanish translation so we can begin, and I will continue to troubleshoot this, Chair, if that works with you.
Great, thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. Good evening, Commissioner Fain.
Good evening.
Good to see you. All right, well, good evening to everyone. I'm Sarah Augustine, the chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission, and I would like to call this meeting to order. To introduce the topics for discussion on our agenda this evening, I will reiterate our mandate. The mandate of the commission set out in the Washington State Redistricting Act is to accomplish state legislative and congressional districting in accordance with the Washington State Constitution. The bipartisan commission was created to listen to the public every 10 years so that the districts would be drawn by statute and with public input. Each commissioner was appointed to this commission. The 4 voting commissioners were appointed by the Democratic caucuses in the House, the Republican caucus in the House, the Republican caucus in the Senate, or the Democratic caucus in the Senate. And I was appointed by the 4 voting commissioners. As the chair of the commission, I will articulate and manage the commission's process. In my role as chair, I will ensure the process is as participatory, fair, and equitable as is possible. The 4 voting commissioners have power and responsibility to vote, ultimately creating and adopting a redistricting plan. Voting commissioners will make decisions that will create maps to best represent the interests of Washingtonians. Those of you from the public joining us today, welcome. It's my goal to engage communities across Washington as fully as I can and to hear and address your concerns and requests. Throughout our tenure as commissioners, we will hear public comments that are important. ideas, requests, and injustices that may fall outside our ability to effectively respond. There are issues you may bring forward in your public comments that we may not be able to address. We can listen to you and be sure to capture your thoughts, questions, and requests. I will do my best to synthesize these, and we will respond to them as we are able. We will certainly deliberate on the issues where we have jurisdiction. Where we don't, I will do my best to refer you to those who may be able to respond more effectively. I'd now like to review our purpose and values. Together, as a commission, we've agreed to the following values and mission: to provide an open, transparent, credible process that is grounded in statute and where all voices are welcome and there's access for everyone. And to conduct ourselves with transparency, respect, and civility, where commissioners will participate and negotiate in good faith. And to meet the deadline outlined by law to produce the best possible maps. I would now like to call roll. Commissioner Brady Walkinshaw.
Present.
Commissioner Joe Fain.
Present.
Commissioner April Sims.
Present.
Commissioner Paul Graves.
Good.
Welcome. Before we begin our meeting, I would like to call for the approval of meeting minutes for our last meeting held July 19, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? None? All right, motion passes. I would now like to invite our Executive Director, Lisa McLean, to provide updates to us with the Executive Director report.
Hello, Commissioners. Good evening. The first thing is the good news. We got census data on Thursday. We didn't have to wait till today, and we're very happy about that. I think that I don't know if anyone had a chance to watch the press conference. I found it quite interesting in terms of they really, although it is their legacy data, and they kind of made it sound like it was going to be in charts that we weren't, or in kind of data files we weren't going to be able to read very well. They actually have dumped a lot of really useful visualizations where you can go in and look at some interesting facts with regard to age. One of the things is that our state has gotten a lot older, or it's grown by oldness more than the under 18 population, although the counties of Adams, one sec here, Adams, Franklin, Grant, and Yakima and Benton were probably the ones who had the greatest growth of under 18-year-olds in population, but especially in the more rural counties in Olympic Peninsula, you have a greater growth of the older population. I think the other big thing that they really made a very big point about was they called it that the whole nation had become more multiracial and more diverse, that the two or more races, people identify as two or more races, has increased 276% across the nation. What I find interesting about that, and one of the big emphasis that they made, is they really were congratulating themselves for having made great advances in the way that they asked the questions, of giving people a whole lot more opportunities to identify their complexity, the complexities of their racial identifications. So that even like the character limit that I guess in the last census, when we had to put, if we could fill in what we were, if it went on too long, it was limited. So let's say if we say Mexican, Indian, Portuguese, the Portuguese we get cut off because there wasn't enough characters for that. So it basically that we could really identify ourselves in a much more robust way. And so they really feel that the diversity is about the fact that they gave people the opportunity to make multiple choices, and to have people, like, even when they listed like Asian, they didn't, and then they said origin. In order to make that clear to people, they picked the 6 most populous Asian subgroups they listed that as a kind of prompt. So Chinese, Japanese, Korean, so that was a way to make sure that we actually would put something into that box if we felt that we saw ourselves there, not as those, but something else, right? So they really feel that they've done a really great job there. And you can see that in the diversity in our state is we did have like 40% more of the population in our state identified as Hispanic and 37% more identified as Black or a combination, Black alone or in combination, because of the fact that we could identify as multiple races. Same thing, Asian is up 53%. And, oh, that's American Indian is up 57.6% and Asian is up 55%. And that's Asian alone or Asian in combination. So I think that just like the rest of the nation, we came out looking a little more diverse. The other thing I want to show you is something we did today and I sent to you, but I want to show to those who might be watching also. Maria, can you begin the slideshow? Yeah, okay. So, you know, the Commissioner Augustine and all of our public outreach meetings have been showing maps of where the state needs to grow and where congressional districts need to grow or legislative districts need to grow. Now we have real data there. So we just quickly mapped that today as we had it. So next slide, Maria. So we can see here, if you can, hopefully you can see this, is you can see here that the ones that need to grow, the congressional districts that need to grow the most are the 6th congressional district, followed by the 5th and the 4th. And those that need to shrink the most is the 7th, as we've seen, as the OFM estimates showed us. And also the 1st needs to shrink quite a bit. If we go to the next slide, we can see the numbers, which is something we didn't have with OFM. So we know that the last congressional districts were made up of about 672,000. Our target's going to be 770,000. And the current population, you can see there of those districts right now is as is shown there. And then the difference is we highlight for you. So it's kind of interesting. Next slide. This is the legislative districts. I'll show you first the larger slide and emphasize the ones, the districts that need to grow, the legislative districts that need to grow. And then I'll show you more of a concentrated one in Puget Sound to show the ones that need to shrink. So here I would say that the ones that need to grow are the 19th and the 24th over on the Olympic Peninsula, the 14th, 15th, 16th, and the 3rd in Spokane. So those are probably of the most, right? Next slide, Maria. And in the Puget Sound area, we can see that the 43rd, the 36th, the 48th, and the 1st are of the most intense teal colors and the ones that need to shrink the most of all of the 49. Obviously, you can see there's nuance there. And if you go to the next slide, you can see here the same thing as the target population is 157,000. What is the current population of those districts based on the census numbers we just got? And what is the difference in terms of how big or large it has to get? So that's my presentation on that. I don't know if anybody has any questions about what we got from census data or what I just mentioned. Okay, seeing none, I will go on. Next thing I got, sorry, what?
I said, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Next, I think I'll go on quickly just to give you a budget update. Again, I sent you a file on that. Is I did update our FY 2021 file. We found another $9,000 in expenses from the last fiscal year. So we're up to $545,843 that we spent out of the 1 million. And then in July, we spent about 91,000, of which 2/3 was salary and another 10% was spent on public outreach. Any questions there? So moving right along then. We, as the chair mentioned, we've been active with tribal consultations, having done tribal consultations with Yakima Nation, Tulalip, Colville. We also heard from Squaxin Island, and we're right now working on trying to arrange a tribal consultation with Chehalis. So we hope that we can hear some more as time goes on. And then just a communications update. Our focus primarily has been on promoting the process since we haven't, ever since the public outreach events have finished. Last month, we had about 4,000 visitors to our website, and most of those people, 1/3, are spending time on the Draw Your WA part of the page of the thing. But whatever we do, most of the visitors that come actually stay very engaged and visit around, look around on the pages and go back and forth and everything. So we're happy about that. In terms of our ads, our Spanish language ads are particularly leading to a high level of engagement. We get more, they come on and they spend more time with those ads and interact with that and go to the website. So that's good. Especially on Facebook, our Spanish speakers really engage with our ads there. And then just to follow up on a question that Commissioner Sims asked last time about YouTube. Remember, I told you that we were going to put up the YouTube videos on our YouTube page and see. We were able to promote it also on YouTube. We were not able to target the Somali and the Swahili target them well on YouTube. So we actually moved those over to Facebook to promote. But we can say that in all cases, we're really excited about the engagement, because I'd say that on average, no matter what language you were in, we got about 5,000 impressions. And of that, we had maybe somewhere between 60 and 48% views of engagement, actual people watching the video in their language. That would be, let's call that Korean, Chinese, Bosnian, Russian, Vietnamese, and Spanish. Okay, so, and Commissioner Sims just seemed to ask the questions like which one got more. And I would say that basically it's not a whole lot more, between 48% and 61%. It's pretty well engaged. The Swahili and the Somali had less engagement in their posts just because of the fact that they were going through Facebook. But still, again, when a post engagement gets about 1% to 2%, that people are doing something like liking it or something, the Somalis were 100% engagement almost, and the Swahilis were 57% engagement. So we're averaging well above what I guess we're getting money, the worth of what we're doing. We're spending money, and it's actually producing more effect than than most people who spend money on ads. So we feel really good about that and feel excellent. So I think that's it on the communications. Hold on a second, let me just make sure. Oh, the other thing is even some of the community, like Seattle Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, they reposted all of our foreign language ads. Washington State Hispanic Affairs Commission, they've put their Spanish video on their YouTube channel, which obviously specific people engage with that. United Way of King County has been pushing the videos to their audiences, and the Somali Community Service of Seattle has pushed it to theirs and was happy that we were able to produce a video in their language. So that's our communications update. I don't know if you have any questions there. Yes.
Yeah, just one question. It's really exciting that we are not only able to do this amount of outreach, but that we can track how effective our outreach is. So thanks for researching that question and following up. Are we able to track how many folks are engaging through our YouTube? How much that's, I don't know if this is the right way to ask the question, so you tell me if it translates right. How much of the activity on other platforms is driving people to our website?
I don't have that number now, but I know that before the communications team did give me the idea of when somebody engages and then whether or not they click. So we did have some numbers from that before. Okay. I can get some numbers for that for that, but we do feel that I think somehow the sort of the whole kind of fun logo and engagement, I think it does kind of intrigue people and get people to go to the website. So I think we've seen that, but I'll get you some numbers on that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's me for now. I come back for other things, but for now, that's everything I have to say.
Thank you, Lisa. I wanted to state that we are having some technical difficulties with our Spanish language interpretation. That is to say that one of our Spanish language interpreters is not able to get on in an effective way. So the way Spanish language interpretation works, we typically have 2 interpreters, and they each work for 15 minutes and then take a break. And so they take turns doing the interpretation. And because we only have 1 interpreter tonight, we're going to have gaps in our Spanish language interpretation. So what that means is that our staff will work to fill in those gaps in the recording when we post the recording of this meeting. But in the live meeting, we are not going to have interpretation throughout. So I apologize to the public for that. Okay, we are now moving on to the discussion portion of our agenda. And our first discussion item this evening is to confirm the dates that we've had in mind, and we've talked about actually in our last meeting, in terms of releasing draft maps and future public outreach. So the first item I wanted to talk about is our draft map publication. And so what we have arrived at is that we will release draft maps, that is 4 draft maps, 1 per each commissioner, on Tuesday, September 21, and those will be the legislative district maps. And then on Tuesday, September 28th, we will release 4 congressional district maps, that is 1 per each commissioner. So I just want to confirm with you that these are the dates that we've agreed upon. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Graves, for the thumbs up. So I see you nodding. Commissioner Sims, go ahead, Commissioner Sims.
Yes, I just want those dates do work as we discussed, but I do want to lift up. I think it was Commissioner Fain during the last meeting suggested that the commissioners would send our draft maps to staff, and those would be embargoed until they were released at the same time. So just wondering when we want to discuss what the actual timing will be, when, you know, if the members of the commission will get those to you by noon and they'll be released by 2, or, and what is the plan to release those maps? Because I'm sure that we will all want to do some sort of release of our, I'm assuming that we may all want to do some sort of statement of our own when we release those. So how we're coordinating the actual release of those maps to the public.
Great, thank you. And so the first thing I'll say is that each of you has a designated point of contact that is working together with staff to really talk through the process for what we need from you, and the files that we'll need, and et cetera. And I think from my point of view, the timing is really about being able to get those files. So, Lisa, you maybe have a more clear understanding in your mind, but from my point of view, we've just begun that conversation with your designees, talking about, you know, who's going to deliver what, and so on. Lisa?
Yeah, we had a conversation today with the web developer about the page. You'll see that we've already kind of put up a page there for, this is where you can find the maps, but we are trying to think through how that's really going to work, and maybe sort of separate 2. We'd have more like a legislative map and landing page. But we just talked to the web developer today, and I was exactly thinking that is, I said, let's get a couple more ideas on paper or in our minds, and then let's have a meeting with these designees to basically say what we need from you when we need it, so that we can definitely appreciate what Commissioner Fain had said before of embargo, but basically all at one time we hit go and everybody's is live at the same time. So what do we need for that? So we are trying to figure that out and plan to have a meeting with your point people to tell them what we need.
Yes, and so I know too that that the release of this maps is a very big event for our commission, and so as we get to the press plan, or then we'll want to talk about that, our proposed plan in terms of how we are going to reach out to the press, and I'm sure each of you will want to do that as well. But we also have a plan as a commission staff. So just to confirm, it looks like we all agree on the dates anyway, September 21 and September 28. And so please stay tuned about the time. We'll be working with you to inform you about that. Okay, we also have discussed some additional public outreach meetings. So these meetings will be for the public to be able to comment on the draft maps in a public outreach meeting. And so we've identified October 5th and October 9th. The October 5th meeting most likely will be devoted to legislative district maps, and the October 9th date will be devoted to congressional district maps. So we know that we have identified these original 2 dates. I'm quite sure there will be additional meetings as a commission, but these are the ones that we're prepared at this time to be certain of. Comments or questions about those dates? Commissioner Graves.
I just want to confirm for those days that we're looking at our kind of normal time, where it would be like 7. We're thinking 7 o'clock for the 5th, and then middle of the day for the 9th, or different times.
Right. So we would be talking about 7 o'clock on the 5th and probably 10 a.m. on the 9th to be consistent with our meeting schedule. And I believe the duration of those meetings are going to be dependent on how many people sign up. So we are not going to, we'll probably say, hey, we anticipate this meeting will be, 2 hours or 3 hours, and we'll make a guesstimate, but then it will really be the length depending on how many people sign up to make public comment. Other comments or questions? All right, great. So the next item for discussion I hoped we could touch on tonight is the deadline for third-party submission. And by this, I mean maps. So we know that we are going to, we have the opportunity to receive public comment right up until November 15th. But it is important, as the commissioners are working together negotiating to draw final maps, that you have time for that negotiation and to make progress without having additional submissions to take into account. So we were thinking it would be important to have a deadline for third-party map submissions. And so this is challenging because we recognize we're on a tight timeline, given that the census data, we did not receive census data in April as is customary, but we've just received census data. So, so it is sort of a short timeline, and the few dates that I've heard suggested right now, I would say the prevailing one is October 22nd. So the public will have access to draft maps September 21 and September 28. And then October 22nd is a potential date for sort of the end deadline date for third-party submission of maps. And I just wanted to raise that for discussion. Yes, Commissioner Graves.
So are we going to just not accept public maps if somebody submitted after that? Or is this instead kind of the idea that, look, we're going to commit to, we'll promise to take a look at your maps until that point. We can't promise to take a look at them afterward. Is the second one kind of the idea? I'm getting the nod.
That's right. We will not ever remove the mapping tool. The public has access to the mapping tool probably until the end of the first quarter in 2022. And there are a variety of reasons for that, but a really important one is that we want that software to be available to our residents in the K-12 system. We certainly have civics teachers and social studies teachers who are using that to help in their classrooms as youth are working through drawing maps, which is really exciting for us. But of course, members of the public can submit maps. We're not going to dismantle the apparatus, but we do want to have a line where we say, gosh, you know, at some point the commissioners may not be able to take your map into consideration. So that's what we're thinking. Yes, Lisa.
Yeah, to your question, Commissioner Graves, I was just reviewing the language of a press release that we're going to release tomorrow, depending on what we agreed here today. And it was exactly that. I put suggested deadline. So and then I try to explain why, so that basically the point is you can give it in on November 14th. It's just, if it's not considered, please understand why. So we suggested you get it in by the 22nd if you want the commissioners to take it seriously.
So are there other, I mean, this date is a date for your consideration. What are your thoughts? Commissioner Fain.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing this proposal forward again. I kind of look at this as a, you know, do your best to try to get it in by this, and we'll take a look at it. And if you don't, it's, you know, a bit of a coin toss, but we'll try to take a look at it. So I don't see any problem. And I think, again, so long as the date is workable for staff, then the date's workable for me.
Thank you. Commissioner Sims.
Yeah, I think I'm still kind of processing. I was just looking at the dates, right? And if our last maps, our legislative district maps are released on the 28th, that would give the public 3.5 weeks, I guess, to provide us with feedback. But it's also less than 2 weeks from when we have our public feedback session, or opportunity for them to provide feedback on the congressional map. So I'm just wondering, you know, it's obviously a lot of work for all of us in drafting the maps, but I'm also thinking about members of the general public who are also working, you know, full-time jobs and handling a multitude of other responsibilities, and whether or not it would not be, whether or not we couldn't just extend it to the 29th through the end of October. I think we might still be, I know that's cutting it close. I just, you know, would like to give the public as much opportunity to submit maps and know that those will get some consideration as possible. So I don't know, I guess I don't have super strong feelings with the deadline as proposed, but I'm just wondering if it's not, if we can't be a little more generous with the general public and allow them another week or so. It also looks like in the draft Outlook plan, the 29th is the submission deadline that's identified there. So there might have already been some conversation around the 29th. But
So we have received proposals for the 15th and the 29th. And so we kind of split the difference with the 22nd, the staff. So I guess what I would like to hear is others. What are your thoughts, Commissioner Walkinshaw and Commissioner Graves?
I tend to think more time would be good, but I defer to the wisdom of the other commissioners.
I don't know if I have strong feelings about it one way or the other. I mean, I think probably realistically it's going to be something of a sliding scale, where the earlier we get it in, the more, you know, deep consideration we can get it. If we got it, you know, on the 29th, well, I think we're going to be in the throes of negotiations. I think we'll probably have less time to give it a deep study. So I guess this is a way of saying I don't feel that strongly about it one way or the other. And I don't know if there's a way to, that might be a little too nuanced of a message to put into a press release or something like that. But I guess maybe the way to do it is just say, whatever our deadline is, get them in as soon as you can so we can take a good look at them.
So from my point of view, I want to be able to let the public know that they will get your full consideration up to a point. And then after that, we'll do our best. And so that's my wish. Again, this is really your decision. And if it just would be good to be clear in terms of saying, we know that we can give you full consideration till this time. And then after that, we'll do our best.
Are you looking for some sort of decision on this or motion on this right now?
Well, we're not, this is just a discussion item. So it sounds like Lisa hoped to have a press release tomorrow after this meeting. I mean, it's not really, to me, it doesn't feel like an actionable item, but I do think it would be good for us to make a decision so that we can notify the press. Lisa.
Yeah, just if I can make a comment, I think with the 22nd, I'm just trying to set realistic expectations to the public to really encourage them that we want to hear from them, that you want to hear from them, and that they're gonna, if they can get it in sooner, as Commissioner Graves was saying, then it's gonna have higher consideration. So that was part of I just worry that on the 29th is that you're all gonna be in the throes of really thrashing out the final pieces. And so that's why I wanna kind of encourage them to get on it, even though it is a limited time. And I would also say that the ledge districts are dropping on the 21st. So it does give a month for them to comment on or redraw those if they want to. The congressional districts are dropping the week later. So it will only give them 3 weeks for the congressional district. So it's more about just trying to give the public a sense of the fact that we really, really want to hear with them. So we want to give them a realistic expectation about when what will be the best way for them to contribute.
Commissioner Sims, I'm just going to check in with you again because I think you had the strongest point of view that was voiced. So love to just check in where you're at.
Oh yeah, it was just an open question, but I'm good with the 22nd.
Okay. So Commissioner Walkinshaw, I'll check in with you too. It sounded like you were.
That's okay with me. That works well.
Okay, great. All right, terrific. So the next item for discussion is the communications plan through November 15. So we did send, or I should say Lisa sent you a document, the outreach plan through November 13th. And so, Lisa, I'd like to give you the opportunity to explain this plan for public advertising from the time that the field data is published on the mapping tool until we submit the final plan. Lisa?
Yeah, and I'd just like to invite Jamie Nixon, our communications director, to make a presentation on that. I think we wanted to, as you saw from what I sent you, which actually James is going to present more than what I sent you, but I did also, it's a matter of us spending money. We'd like to spend about $50,000 to drum up some interest in this thing. And Jamie has some other ideas as well. So I'll turn it over to Jamie.
Good evening, all. Can everybody hear me? So I want to make sure that I'm heard well. Okay, terrific. Maria, if you could go to the show, thank you very much. Okay, so this is the draft communications plan for basically the rest of the events through the November 15th deadline. We can go to the next page, Maria. I will let you know, you'll see that right off the bat, there'll be some, the dates are in yellow with a question mark because until just a moment ago, we weren't exactly sure. So I will certainly fill those dates in going forward. The plan was drafted with two main goals in mind, as you see here, to garner more interest and engagement from the public, as well as raise awareness of the events and deadlines that remain on the schedule. When looking at the schedule, it felt like that was the best way to kind of build the plan, was there was these obviously certain important dates that we want to make sure the public is aware of so that they know how and when to engage with each part of the process. Next slide, please. Broke down the spending based on topic/event, although there is some coverage, like some things kind of touch on more than one kind of area. So the first part of the, and you'll see the breakdown here, and then we'll go piece by piece over the next slide. So if you go to the next slide, please, Maria. So so this is for when the data is released and the mapping tool goes live for everybody. So when, I could address Commissioner Sims directly. When you were talking about the public won't have a lot of time, they won't have as much time after your initial proposed maps drop, but they'll be able to send in third-party submissions as soon as we have the mapping tool live. So there'll be some organizations, especially, who probably have ideas on exactly what the map looks like without even seeing your guys' maps, and they'll be able to get those in very quickly. So we're going to spend the vast majority of the budget that we have put together on this section here. It will touch on many things. So We're going to do another of our animated videos, and the animated video will mention all the other events and dates that kind of coming along. So that will reinforce what we're going to do later as far as the plan goes. We're going to do radio spots this time, just because we want to make sure that we're reaching audiences that aren't necessarily on social media. And so we think this is a great way to do that. We know we have some Spanish speaking stations in the state as well that we want to use to do that. And we're looking at radio stations that cover the entire state with population areas in both the east side and the west side of the state. Again, we'll be doing stuff across our social media platforms to reinforce the messaging that the data is live, the tool is available. You can do third-party submissions. You can continue to just send comments. Third-party submissions have a deadline. We will probably have public outreach meetings on these days. Those kinds of things that we will see in the video that we are producing this week. Next slide, please, Maria. So we did 10% of the budget on the release of the proposed maps. Again, that seems like a smaller portion, but again, we're going to be reinforcing that with the first block of spending as well. But this is where we also think that we will have a fair bit of earned media. So when you guys finally actually put out your proposed maps, we are pretty confident that the press is going to make it aware, help make the public aware that that's happened. And it was our hope that we'll do a video to support this as well. But then we're hoping, as Commissioner Sims was mentioning, what will the rollout look like? My hope would be that we could do, we'll do a press release as well as social and video messaging to back this up. And I was thinking that maybe, because we know that at the last commission, they did basically a presentation when they did their proposed maps. And then they were in the Ledge building, I think, and they went out in the hallway and the press was there and they basically asked questions and held a press avail kind of in the hallway. We probably won't be getting together face-to-face for such a press avail, the way things are kind of going with the pandemic right now. But I would like to set up either a virtual press availability or perhaps maybe editorial board interviews with the group. And you guys could then all speak to the values that went into the maps or however it is you'd like to speak to them. Also, if you'd like, I think it would be really great if you wanted to put a short statement together with your map proposals that we could also post on the website so that people could just have a nice quick little blurb about what you think about your state legislative map and your congressional map. I was thinking we would do that after we have both of them published so that people could, so when the press talks to you, they'll be able to speak to either and ask you questions about either map. So that would be, so if the 28th lands on a Tuesday, maybe perhaps later that week on the Thursday, the 30th, perhaps we could set up something with the 4 members, with all 5 members and the press to discuss the motivations behind the maps that you just proposed, as well as what do you think is going to happen the rest of the time. I'm sure it will be the tone of the discussion. Next slide, please, Maria. And this would be the portion to advertise directly for the public outreach meetings that we're going to have on the 5th and the 9th. There was some confusion before the meeting that we might be discussing both maps at both meetings, but now I'm clear that we will be doing the state legislative map on October 5th and the congressional map on October 9th. And so that's what this part of the budget will be going for, will be to, again, boost the participation in those meetings, try to get as much input and feedback from the public as possible. Next slide, please, Maria. And I will punch in October 22nd here, right? As the pseudo hard deadline date. We will obviously, per the discussion just now, we will continue to accept submissions, but if you want them to be taken seriously as a high priority by the members of the commission, October 22nd will be that date. This will be the budget spent to reinforce that date. Again, that all this messaging will reinforce itself as we go through each week, because we'll be having, everything will be kind of going at the same time. We're not going to wait until after the public outreach meetings to discuss this deadline. We will be putting out the products for this deadline within a week or two. So then we'll slowly start rolling these things out and putting the budget to it. Next slide, please, Maria. And then the final piece here would be November 15th final maps. Social media heavy, we'll do a press release, obviously, and press availability. I understand the timing here can be a little weird because you guys have until 11:59 that night. So as far as when we would do something with the press upon release of a final map, maybe it goes to November 16th before we do something like that. But I just wanted to have this out there and let you guys kind of chew on it a little bit about how you would like to do either of those two opportunities for press availabilities and maybe editorial board discussion with newspapers around the state. Let's see, all the dates except for the final date are obviously you guys, if something were to come up, you have the power to change those things. And for us, I think for our purposes, it would just be good to know if you guys have if you have some appetite for doing press after proposed maps and what that would be like. And would you be available? Would you want to do just one-on-one or as a group? I think the editorial board thing as a group would be best if we were doing that, but I'm sure that we could probably accommodate individual needs as well if necessary. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jamie.
Right.
I'm happy to answer any questions. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Chair.
Great. So let's begin with Commissioner Graves, if you have comments or questions.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Jamie, for putting that together. You remind me when we do social media posts, what universes we're targeting for those ads?
Sure. So we do the targeting that's, so essentially you can kind of put in keywords into most of social media platforms to look for the people that you're looking for. So we use words like civics, politics, voting, elections, legislation, legislators, while also looking for community, neighborhoods. When we're doing foreign language ads, we target speakers of the particular language, as well as what's really great about Facebook in particular is that we can do, like when we were doing the initial outreach, it was by congressional district specific. So we could just target, we could just say Washington's 4th Congressional, and the ads would only go to people who live in that area. These ads will obviously go statewide because this will be a discussion for everybody in the state to join in. So we will be doing a statewide outreach on that as well when it comes to how we target on social media.
Commissioner Walkinshaw, wonder if you have comments or questions.
I think these are good thoughts. Thank you, Jamie. I don't have a lot of thoughts right now. I think this is generally a good direction. I think that we don't need to, I don't know that we have to kind of overly conform what everyone is doing to make it the same. I think that there's a chance. I think we might all take some different approaches to, which I think is probably a good thing in communicating. I also worry with editorial board interviews. I mean, it's a nice idea to try to coordinate for all 4 of us to be on all of them when they come up, but I'm a little bit worried just about the scheduling if there become demands on time, and for us to be nimble as well.
I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Okay, great. Commissioner Fain, thoughts, questions?
Agree with everything that's been said. We've got some time to think about it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sims.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. I like this plan. I think my only question is $50,000 feels a little conservative given the reach that we're trying to, what we're trying to do with this outreach, and what is it, like a 10-week plan that you've drawn out here? Is this enough? Is this adequate? I mean, if we're going to approve something, I want to make sure that what we're approving is adequate for our communications plan is all.
Sure, it's a very fair question. Just to give you an idea of what we spent so far on the initial round of outreach, I think we spent about $12,000. And so this is a large bump up from that. And so the results you saw that we got were from basically a $12,000 spend on social media only. So this will be a $50,000 spend on social media as well as terrestrial radio in order to help get the message out to not only that social media audience, but other audiences that don't jump on social media and don't use it regularly. So that was the purpose for the number that we had. We obviously, as a communications team, we would love to have more resources, but we also don't want to overshoot and do anything. We thought we had pretty good results based off of the $12,000 that we've spent so far, and so we thought that we would be able to really penetrate even deeper and further with the amount of money that we proposed here.
Great. I appreciate you being thoughtful with the budget too. So thanks.
Thank you, Lisa.
And I just add, Commissioner Sims, I mean, Jamie started out last week being only allowed to build a budget for 20,000, and then it went to 25, and then it went to 50. So we've gotten ambitious in the last week.
Great. All right, so the next item for discussion on our agenda this evening is a discussion of the transmittal letter and resolution. And so we want to begin this conversation just so that you know that staff are working on this, anticipating preparing for submission of final maps. So as part of the transmission of the agreed upon maps to the legislature on November 15th, we will need a transmittal letter to each of the 4 leaders and a resolution. And based on the language from the last redistricting effort, we wanted to present to you the suggested draft of this redistricting cycle. And so Lisa, would you like to talk about this?
Yeah, so I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them, but I do think that what we're trying to do is to get all decisions out of the way that we need to. So if you like the letter, I was thinking study the letter. It's a pretty simple letter. We managed to do our job. Here's our maps. The resolution, as I said, both the letter and the resolution have been looked at by our counsel, Attorney General, and they are like verbatim based on what was submitted last time, except for the fact that we did, the Attorney General's office suggested some changes with regard to this new part of the RCW related to the relocation of the incarcerated people. But by and large, I don't know if it's standard language because I'm not a lawyer, but that's the thing. So I kind of wanted to put it in front of you, see if you have anything, if any of it raises any issues. I think that if it's possible, if you don't have an objection to it, I think we should deal with any issues you have now and hope that maybe next meeting we could actually vote on that and put those things to bed. They would come back out. We would put, you'll see in the resolution, there's a couple of blanks. The blanks are like there was a blank for a unanimous vote. By unanimous vote, we adopted that. That's what we put in there. And then the other blanks are basically what are the files called? And so we'll put the names of the files in those other blanks. But the idea would be that we kind of had that all assembled and ready to go while we negotiate the final issues on the maps. So that's my presentation on that. Any questions?
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm just going to say just my thought about that is that that staff have really been working to front load tasks in anticipation of receiving census data. So thinking about, what can we do now so that we can really devote, once we have census data, all of our energies towards developing the maps. So I just wanted to check in with you and see what your thoughts are about these documents, beginning with Commissioner Walkinshaw.
I haven't had a chance to review them, but I will by the subsequent meeting for approval. But that all everything that was shared at least what you shared makes sense. So directionally, it sounds good.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Fain.
We'll happily review them. Don't imagine there'll be anything that stands out.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sims.
Yeah, I like the idea of front loading as much of the work as possible, but would like to, give it a little more thought. And I'm prepared to weigh in next month at our meeting when it's time for approval.
Terrific, thank you. And Commissioner Graves.
Ditto.
All right, terrific. Thank you. All right, so I would now like to move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. Before public comment tonight, I would like to summarize what I've heard from the public since our last meeting on July 19th, which is what we try and do in every business meeting. Since our last meeting on July 19th, or our last business meeting, the Commission received a majority of public comments at the 5 public outreach meetings held in the second half of July. Outside of these public meetings, we received phone calls, voicemails, letters, and emails from people across the state about district boundaries and their communities. Regarding congressional district boundaries, we heard many people voice comment about the eastern borders on the third CD in Skamania and Klickitat counties, and we heard calls for a majority people of color congressional district focused on South King County. As was the case in previous rounds of public outreach meetings, we heard from many people arguing for or against Congressional District 8's inclusion of areas on the east side of the Cascade Mountains. In a similar vein, we heard significantly varied opinions about whether the 4th and the 5th congressional districts should remain north-south or be changed to the east-west direction. We did hear comments regarding the borders of all congressional districts. The majority dealt with minor changes to their borders. Regarding legislative district boundaries, there were comments on nearly half of the 49 districts. Comments focused on a few areas, particularly Skamania and Klickitat counties, and their inclusion in Legislative District 14, the division of the city of Bremerton between multiple legislative districts, the inclusion of Lincoln County in Legislative District 13, and the district boundaries in and around the cities of Everett and Marysville. Many of these comments spoke to unifying racial and or cultural communities of interest in particular districts. Across the state, we heard people highlight tribal communities of interest and the need to unify them into single legislative and or congressional districts. We heard from the public about the need to make fair districts that do not privilege any group or political interest. Lastly, we heard great interest in the census figures and their publication this month. This short summary of all the comments we received by no means do justice to what the commissioners have read and heard. Recordings of the public outreach meetings can be found on our website. We invite you all to follow these meetings at your convenience, and we invite your commentary throughout this process as we try to stitch together a puzzle that best cuts the state into 10 congressional and 49 legislative districts. So let's start public comment. You're always welcome to sign up for the public comment period. We cut off registration by noon on commission business meetings and 24 hours prior to each regional meeting. We will assign each speaker who signed up this evening 2 minutes. And tonight, our web tech, Sean Murray, will facilitate public comment. Sean will call your name, at which time your status in Zoom will change from observer to panelist. When Sean calls your name, you will have 2 minutes to speak. The countdown clock will appear on your screen. At the end of your allotted time, you will be muted. We realize that 2 minutes is a very brief time in which to share your comments, and we're interested in what you have to say and urge you to send your written comments to us via our email address at comment@redistricting.wa.gov, or you can call us. We would love to hear from you. And some people send us letters too. Sean, if you would call folks who are going to testify tonight.
Absolutely, Chair. I would like to also just give a quick update. We are finally able to get the second Spanish interpreter set up and running. So there, from now on out of the rest of the meeting, there should be full Spanish interpretation. We apologize for the inconvenience, but we will start with Jeffrey Olsen for tonight's meeting, then go on to Toller Bryan, Harold Hanson, and Gray Schultz. If we can begin with Jeffrey, please. Jeffrey, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Welcome.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I assume you can hear me. Okay. Hopefully you read my comments about the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde precinct in Spokane County. I've heard that there is an attempt to split the 4th and 5th along I-90. Only problem with that, the result is dividing the Yakima Nation even more. Only way to keep Yakima County solid is to do minimum change to Chelan County. Now, in my earlier stuff, I asked for set up a post where all the people who comments on a certain district can react to each other. that was a long time ago. Nothing has happened since then. And I will not create a third-party map, but I will critique you guys very carefully. And that's about it. I'll turn back the rest of the time.
Thank you, Mr. Olsen. We always appreciate your dedication and diligence in joining us. Thank you. Sean?
Absolutely, Chair. Thank you so much. Toller Brian, if you can begin your testimony. I see your video is on.
My video is on and I turned on my mic, so hopefully everybody can hear me. I just have a couple of questions, and I don't know if this can be interactive and they can be answered as I ask them or not. But one of the questions I have is the charts that Lisa presented in her PowerPoint. Are those going to be, or will they be able to? Can we get a copy of those charts? That's number one. I've been trying to work with the mapping tool, and I even sent a message to was it Justin Bennett? I can't figure it out. Sorry, but the drawing any kind of lines, you know, it seems to be pretty restricted as to what you can select and what you can't select. So that's one of the issues I have. I also was curious. I was trying to take some notes, but what was the target population for the legislative districts, and what was the target population for the congressional districts? I missed those somewhere along the line, and didn't get them written down. And other than that, I'm looking forward to seeing some draft maps. I don't know if I'll be submitting any kind of a third-party map myself, but I certainly want to play around with that mapping tool and see what I can do, especially as it relates to the 9th district, legislative district, and the 4th and 5th congressional districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate your questions and your comments. And so I can take on some of those questions. Can we post the maps that Lisa discussed? I think you mean the maps.
No, the charts.
Okay, tell me which charts you mean. Are you talking about?
It was the chart of the census charts by county and by legislative district.
So relating to census data. So
yeah, correct.
Yeah, I believe we can do that. Lisa, is that right?
Yeah, we'll figure out a way to do that. I'll send it to you directly, the presentation, and that will have in it the number of the target numbers.
That's perfect.
But also we're going to try to, we were just talking about that today. We're going to try to figure out what we can do in terms of putting that up, but I'll make sure you get it yourself.
Thank you.
And then in terms of, I hope with the mapping tool, I will make sure that Justin reaches out to you. I know he will. It is very much our interest to ensure that people have what they need to use the mapping tool. And I believe there are tutorial videos as well, so we can try and connect you with those. And then in terms of the actual number that we're shooting for the legislative districts and congressional districts, I say that over and over and over again, and you would think that I would remember it off the top of my head. I don't, Lisa. If you do, that would be great. If not, I can just grab it. It's in my bag.
Because I'm reading from a piece of paper, I can tell you it's 770,528 is the target. That's for congressional. And for legislative, it would be 157,251.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Sean, if you'd please call our next speaker.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next speaker will be Gary. As your video is on, it looks like your audio is on as well. If you can please begin your testimony.
My name is Gary Schultze. I am in the 7th Congressional District and 36th Legislative District. And I'd like to find out if you split the 36th Legislature District, you said you're going to take some of it away. Maybe Belton might be a way of consolidating it into an area, because that's on the south end of our district. And also on the 7th Congressional, you're going to make that one smaller too. So maybe use the Snohomish County line as a way of splitting off. I think it's Edmonds is up there. And so they just reduce the size of that. So thank you for being there.
Thank you. We really appreciate your input. Thank you very much. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our final speaker will be Harold Hanson. If you can please turn on your video, unmute yourself, and begin your testimony.
I don't have any video. Can you hear me?
Yes,
We
we can.
can.
Please
Thank
begin.
you.
Okay. I reiterated this last time I spoke. Third Congressional, Clark County is the fourth largest district, and we have nobody on the committee. That upsets me. I'm third Congressional LD, and I've lived here a whole long time, and the amount of population I'm certain is totally underestimated. Do you guys hear me? Or am I
Yes.
shut? Yeah, am I still there?
Yes.
Okay. I really appreciate the honesty and forwardness of your efforts. I think with the delay of the data release, that we should have a chance to pull the legislature in and give us a delay to do this right. That's the single best, most important thing I can share with you. So, what do we have, 4 months delay of the data? Give us some time to go through it, make sure it's not gerrymandered, make sure it's just and fair. 3 months ago, nobody was talking about this. I understand it and saw how valuable it is. So I sure, and one other thing is, up to that point, to one district at a time, and then marry us to our adjoining districts. That will give us a lot better idea. One thing I learned about at the last meeting, the third district was married with the sixth district, and that gave me a lot of insight. But they're not really connected to us. Third Congressional District is Clark County hub of population, and then the rest of it's rural. So we need to bring that.
Okay, I'm sorry that your time elapsed, and we really look forward to hearing from you, Harold. If you want to put your full comment in an email, we would sure love to receive it. And so at this time, I want to ask the commissioners if you have comments or questions for our speakers this evening. Okay, seeing none, I want to thank you, members of the public, for coming and sharing your thoughts with us this evening. We appreciate you, appreciate your leadership and the effort that it takes for you to show up on behalf of your community on a Monday evening. Thank you for joining us. I also want to thank the commissioners for your service, for your commitment and dedication, for your time and attention tonight. To members of the public who've taken time to join us, those who are just tuning in, maybe didn't testify, thank you for joining us. I would like to thank staff who've helped to prepare the commission for this meeting. Lisa McLean, Jamie Nixon, Paul Campos, Osta Davis, Anton Gross, and Ali O'Neill provided staff support for discussion items. Justin Bennett has provided information about the web tool and also the data rollout. Sean Murray provided technical support. Maria Garza provided admin support, including taking minutes. Thank you, Lisa and Becky from Legislative Support Services, for your continued help and support. A special thanks to Heidi, Maria, Brandon, and Heather for interpretation services tonight. This meeting is now adjourned.